This is Counsel Cast, part of the Legal Talk Network, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy. When you face a complex case outside your expertise, you bring in a co-counsel for next-level results. When you want to engage, expand, and elevate your firm, you bring in a Marketing Co-Counsel. In this podcast, I bring in marketing experts who each answer one big question to help your firm achieve more. Here's today's guest.
Hi, I'm Jennie Wright. I'm a list build and lead generation specialist and fractional CMO for law firms, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Jennie, this is going to be a good one. I am worried that we might go an hour or two because we've got so much good stuff to talk about, but we'll be concise. We'll do it. We'll push through and make it good. So the topic that we're going to talk about today, as you mentioned, is lead generation, fractional CMO. The title is How Can Lawyers Turbocharge Their Lead Generation? And so let's talk about lead generation in terms of what the first thing most lawyers think about is SEO. And why is that not necessarily the place to start?
It seems like the easiest place to start, but SEO is such a long-term play.
Yes.
It's something obviously you want to have, but you have to think about it as a long-term picture. It is not something that's going to get you leads right out the door. It is a consistent project, right?
Yeah.
If you want to get leads in the door right away, then you're going to be looking at different avenues of lead generation. So you have to look at things that are going to pull those people in. The thing that I find so interesting with lawyers is it's very geographically specific.
Yes.
You practice in one area, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have the leads in that area. So the best thing to do with that is to look at things like a really good lead magnet that has the name of your area of practice right in it. The top 10 blah, blah, blahs for people who want to blah, blah, blah in, Texas, Houston, Texas, whatever.
Right.
And so on. So that the specificity that you really want to get into is the lead gen for just getting people in the door and getting to know you. And then you have to work on your closing game.
Okay. There's a lot there in that little short nugget. I'm going to pull out a bunch of little kind of sub angles to go off of a lot of the different things that you talked about. So let's first talk about what a lead magnet is, because I think a lot of people imagine a coach or I don't know, those kind of lead magnets that people assume. What would a lead magnet look like for a lawyer? Because I think as soon as a lot of lawyers that I talk to hear lead magnet, they're like, oh, it's not for me. That's too close to sales and that feels yucky. So what would it, give me an example. Let's talk about two different kinds of law firms, like an estate planning firm where it's a small firm in, maybe not a massive metropolitan area, just kind of a mid-sized Nashville. Let's say Nashville. Okay. And then let's say a personal injury attorney in Chicago. So bigger city, two totally different kinds of businesses.
Huge. Okay. I feel like this is a test.
Okay. I'm going to kind of talk through this so that you have a minute to think. Okay, awesome.
I like tests. I love the challenge. Okay.
Okay. So, all right. Let's do it.
So the first location, small business, we're talking about estate planning. Perfect.
Yes.
So the first thing that you'd probably want to do for a lead magnet there is an easily downloadable guide plus video.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Listen, but come on. Every time you download something, it sits on your desktop. You're never going to watch it.
Exactly.
So you include a video that auto plays on the page where the download is. Not hard, guys. This is not technically difficult, by the way.
Yep.
And the download is usually a guide. How to set yourself up for success, right? It doesn't have to be like estate planning 101. I mean, what we want is we want to get people, the younger crowd, interested in estate planning.
Yep.
We need to talk about the things that matter to them, which is setting up your legacy, ensuring that everybody's going to be protected, that the thing that you're trying to create is safe and okay.
Yes, that the thing they're worried about, you have that answer and you're going to make it safe. I think that's such a major key. We're not explaining the law to them.
No, we're actually going off emotion. So people always buy with emotion and then they justify with logic. So if your downloadable, whatever it is and I can't even claim that that's mine. Somebody shared that with me.
I love it though.
Right?
Doesn't matter.
And
we're going to credit you for that one. They buy with emotion and justify with logic. I love
absolutely.
that. Yes.
Absolutely. And so we have to approach our lead magnets from a space of emotion. We're in an emotional state when we're looking for these things. When we're searching on Google, we're not in a logical state most of the time.
Right.
We're trying to get our dishwasher fixed. We're trying to make sure that we teach our puppy not to bite, whatever it is. Yes. And when it comes to estate planning or family law or personal injury law, we're usually at the point where decisions need to be made and we're still thinking with emotion.
Yes.
So the download or the thing has to have that emotional piece, and then you can present the logic. Okay. So you're always reaching out to the empathetic side, the feeling side. Yeah. I need to be ready so that my grandkids are okay, or I need to get things in order so that when I do pass away, I haven't left a mess. Or you can even remove the whole death and dying right out of it and just say, I just want my stuff organized so that I know exactly where I stand and I'm making plans for the future.
Yes. Okay, so we're appealing to the emotional side. That seems easier to me when it comes to estate planning. So let's flip it over to the other firm. Let's say personal injury in Chicago. They're searching, or they're people who are searching for them have had some kind of an accident, or they've something has happened. Usually, kind of out of the blue. It's not something that they're planning for.
This is easy. This is actually easier than estate planning.
Oh, cool.
This is your 10-step checklist to make sure that if you've been in an accident, you know exactly what your next steps are.
Nice. Right? Yes.
Right. So documentation, making sure that you've reported things, that you've gone and seen a physician if you need to see a physician to document anything that's happened, and so on and so forth. Right.
Yeah.
Taking pictures, making sure you have the other person's information and so on. But you also, again, that's the logical side. You got to put in the emotion, right?
Yeah.
So it's, hey, you've just something terrible has just happened to you or somebody that you know.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay. We're going to make sure that, you're taken care of. And here's the steps that we're going to take to make sure that happens. And we've included a 10-step guide on how you can make sure that you are going to be okay.
Okay. This is so good. I want to take one step back and put this in a bigger construct.
Context?
Yeah, context, construct, whatever you want to use. So I think a lot of people look at this, and I know a lot of people look at this and they're like, I don't really get this whole marketing thing in general. I don't know where this fits. I don't know how to do this, but also let's talk broadly about the marketing funnel. Mm-hmm. So you and I probably, I know I live and breathe this marketing funnel. And so let's talk about first, where does this fit in the funnel? And so for those of you who aren't familiar with this marketing funnel, because you're a lawyer and this is not necessarily the thing you do all day, picture an upside down triangle. So the widest part is at the top. And the top of your funnel is where you're gathering sort of attention. And then as you move through the funnel, the very bottom is not only have you converted this person to a client, but they're probably a past client and you're going to continue to nurture them. And then there's steps throughout the funnel that you're going to get them to that phase. So let's talk about first, where does this lead generation idea fit? And then what other elements kind of tie in and then tie out of the lead generation process?
Excellent question. So the first part of it is that your lead gen, whatever it is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a lead magnet.
Sure.
It could be enter your name and email to get on our newsletter. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
It could be lead gen can be as simple as a book a call. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But this lives after your attention getting piece like social media, appearances, to speak, your networking opportunities. It is anything where somebody can go to and then start to interact with you. So it's usually step 2.
Right. So interest.
Yes. It's still in the interest building because, if somebody meets you, a potential client meets you or hears you or sees you, they're going to Google you.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that's going to come up is probably your website.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that should come up is probably notable mentions, and your lead magnet should be in there somewhere. This is
right.
That's where it should be. However, it's also very targeted. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish.
It's incredibly targeted.
Yeah.
right? So your lead magnet may not show up on Google where you want it to, and that's okay because it's very specific. What it should be is I shouldn't put your name in and that lead magnet necessarily come up. I should put in my concern and your lead magnet should come up. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but and you should have more than one lead magnet eventually. Start with one, and then you can build them out based on the very niched in concerns that your potential ideal client talks about.
Right.
And you can build little ones around that. So that's sort of the top of that funnel. And then you said the second part of that question was,
what comes next?
What comes next? So the easiest thing is most people are going to be pushing to a consult.
Right.
Either free consult or paid consult.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a lot of people, usually about 50% or more, mostly more, will say no. So how are you going to recapture those leads? You have to have something like an autoresponder nurture sequence, which basically just means having a series of emails that go out at a particular rate and keep people's interest.
Okay, so this is so important. And here's why I'm focusing on this funnel. And, as a side note, I'm going to be bringing up this funnel pretty much every episode this year because it's something that bears repeating and understanding, because most of these things like email campaigns and content generation fit in a few different areas.
They do.
So that's where it gets confusing for a lot of people, but you're going to be doing it differently in those different areas. But a lot of people, their entire marketing strategy is one little sliver of the funnel. And then they don't understand why they're riding this roller coaster of marketing. And it's because if your funnel is full and you are doing this in the best possible way where it's working and successful, you should have people at all these different stages. You should be moving people through, and it should be then you have this constant flow of business, of clients, but it is such a project to do all of the different phases at any given moment, every single day, all day, right? So This is where this fractional CMO comes in. So let's talk really briefly about kind of how that works. I kind of did a very kind of overview. It basically, like, we manage your entire funnel and figure it all out specifically for you. But how does your fractional CMO program work?
I always start with an audit. And so I'm not fractional CMO to a ton of firms or a ton of companies. Obviously, you can only do that so much.
Sure.
But I do audits for quite a few. So it's a 30-day audit. I get in there. I look at all the different traffic channels. So I actually create a traffic map of all the traffic coming in, where it's coming in, and where it's leaking out. Which is
that's
really
so
big.
good. Yeah. And I mean, if we just keep coming back to this funnel, that is like, you're just kind of a diagnosis. Like if you pulled your car in to get an oil change and they didn't notice that all of a sudden there was like this fluid just pouring out of one part of your engine.
Or a tire is missing.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
But that's the example I would use. Like a tire is literally missing on the car and you're trying to run a car on 3 tires.
It's like clunk, clunk, clunk.
Exactly. But you wouldn't believe how many people do that.
It's so true though. Because all of a
is.
sudden it's like, oh, wait, we needed to kind of follow up with these people who have called us. Well, I mean, it seems so obvious in retrospect.
It does, but if you're not doing it, this is why if you don't have a CMO, you need to have a marketing person in your firm, either a fractional marketing strategist, something like that. CMO is great. It's CMO's top level. It's going to get you like everything you need. But if you need to just have a marketing strategist, you can have that too.
Sure.
But the goal has to be to look at all the traffic channels, see where everything's coming in, and then optimize it.
Yeah.
And you'll find that people are spending too much money on PPC ads or not enough. They don't have optimized SEO, or they haven't spent any time on SEO. Nobody's kind of got their hands on the wheel.
Yes.
And making sure that everything is pointing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And that's my superpower. My superpower is find where people are coming in, look for the deficiencies.
Yep.
Find where people are leaking out, fill the gaps.
Yep.
Then you fix all the processes as well, right? So it's having a CMO coming in is not going to fix all your problems overnight. No. Usually there's the audit, at least for me, the audit, and then I create a plan.
Yeah.
If the client likes the plan and wants to implement it, congrats. Now I'm your CMO.
Right.
And then I implement the plan. And literally my KPIs for the first couple of, like the first little bit is all about cleanup or doing everything that I had on the audit.
Yep.
Then I can make progress. Like we got to fix the foundation before we start building a second or third floor.
We have to put the wheel back on
the car. The wheel has to go back on the car.
Right. Yes.
You know, and I got to find what and quite honestly, between you and me, I used to work on cars back when I was a teenager.
So you could put the wheel back on.
I could put the wheel back on the car, you know, but you've got to do all those components to make sure that the car actually functions. You got to, put proper gas and blah, blah, blah. There's so many things that people don't see. That's the relevancy and the importance of having a dedicated marketing mind.
Yeah.
Look at your stuff.
So I see all these reports all the time. There was one that came out last fall about how frequent law firm owners don't even pick up their own phone, or it takes them multiple days to return a call. And it's things like this that I look at and I'm like, okay, this is not just a standalone issue. Mm-hmm. There is so much more going on in that firm. This is just one symptom of some greater disease.
Yes.
And from me, I'm always looking at it from the marketing perspective. Clearly, there's probably operational problems. There's potentially financial things. If they can't even pick up their phone, there's probably so many things. And I see it all the time. All of a sudden, I've got a client on like a systematic payment system, and that doesn't go through, and it takes them more than a typical amount of time to get back to me. I'm like, there's more going on here. Like, you can just know right away which clients are organized and systematic and on top of things, and which clients it is falling apart. And however, wherever your touch point is, as a marketing person with them or as a client or wherever, you are going to see, you're going to feel where it's falling apart. So this is where this comes in, is you've got this outside person that comes in from a marketing perspective, looks at the whole picture and finds those broken parts or the missing wheels and like works to fix all of those issues, but not just fix it, like I'll put them on a path for growth as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So let's come back to lead generation then. And because we've got it now in the whole big picture where, like, yes, this is super important and this can boost your growth and all of that, but it's this tiny sliver of how it all works. So where do you see people make the biggest mistakes when it comes to, let's just go back to just the lead generation slice of things?
Biggest mistakes are made. Oh my gosh, how much time do we have? No, quite honestly. But the biggest mistakes are made with what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know that having your landing page convert really, really well is a massive, massive boost to your lead gen.
Yep.
If you're spending the time, effort, and money to run traffic to a landing page, or you're just promoting it organically, and your landing page for your lead magnet, the place where they enter their name and email and then they receive, if that is converting poorly, you're losing leads. That's a leak. Okay.
Yep.
And if you can get that page to convert better, then you're going to have a better reception on the term, like the amount of leads that are going to register, and then the amount of people you have to contact.
Right.
So that's huge. The biggest thing that's one of the biggest mistakes. But even if you take a step further back, the issue is not having an audience.
Yeah.
So you can create all the lead magnets you want in the world. You can put your shingle up online with your website. You can have your LinkedIn page and platform. But unless you're putting out relevant content that people actually want on a regular basis with consistency, none of it's going to matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the place you got to start.
Amazing guest. I want to say it was earlier this year. And he talked a lot about, so we're coming back to that top of the funnel, either step 1 or step 2. Step 1 is the awareness. Step 2 that we're talking about is more interest. But he talked about not necessarily trying to get so much more traffic to your site, because most people, when they're looking at analytics, that's the number they look at, period. And they don't really kind of go much farther. But imagine if you converted people who were kind of coming into that step too. You've already got the traffic. Imagine if you just converted a higher percentage of the people who are there. First of all, your costs go way down. Your revenue goes way up. Like that makes way more sense. So converting, looking at your numbers, not at that top level, like this is how much traffic, but what happens between level 1 and the people who actually sign up for your lead magnet? And can you improve that? Because then we're still towards the top of that funnel. And then all of your numbers are bigger underneath of it, you know? So instead of like squeezing the numbers and making a mistake right at the top, your numbers, you know, diminish from there. Make some of those top numbers bigger.
Oh God, Karin, we could just talk about this all day.
We're not going to do that.
No, but we could. Yes, absolutely. You're 100% right. I love your point of view on it. And it has to be something that is optimized, but also like you don't want to shame people for not having done it because again, what you don't know is what you don't know. Like you didn't study and then take the bar so that you could then become a marketing director.
Right.
You went into this for a certain purpose.
Yeah.
And are you going to learn marketing along the way? Yeah, you're also going to learn accounts payable, receivable.
Right.
You're going to learn all these different kinds of things, people management, and so on and so forth. You can learn the marketing piece, which is great, but don't be down on yourself for the fact that you aren't a pro. That's why we exist. Like this.
Exactly.
That's why I've been doing this for over 20 years. That's why you've been doing it successfully as long as you have.
Yeah. That's the whole point. You know, at some point when I used to be corporate, my CEO would say, listen, it's all about hiring the best, smartest people around you who are even smarter than you, because then they just bring all of the best ideas into you. And then, you know, so once again, like you can't spend your entire day being both like an amazing lawyer and an amazing accountant and an amazing marketing person and an amazing, you know, every single thing. Like I don't change my own oil. I go to someone who does that. Like, I don't know why we keep coming back to these car analogies, but you know, that's where we're at today.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're at the point where we've got people on the site. We're trying to improve that overall engagement in the lead magnet. And we know that we need to connect with them emotionally. What else really works? If you are looking at someone's site and they've got a leak in their lead magnet and you can see people are coming in, but they're just not providing their email. It's just not working. Mm-hmm. What's the first thing you usually look at to fix or improve or, you know, make it better?
I'm going to look first at the visuals, second at the copy.
Okay. So what is the worst thing people can do with visuals? Or one of the worst?
One of the worst is, well, it's making it so it doesn't fit your brand, number one. Yeah. And two is what I call the cobble effect, right? You're cobbling it together to try and make it work. You're using a free page builder because somebody told you could build a high converting landing page off of a MailChimp page or something like that, which angers me. But I have very specific opinions on these things.
Yeah, I could tell. We're taking a moment,
breathing. Okay, I'm all right.
Moving past MailChimp.
Yes. You're okay. But
if you get nothing else, let's just not do a landing page and like a follow-up sequence using MailChimp.
and no shade to MailChimp. They have improved over the years, but the free stuff, I mean, if you get for free, you know what you're going to get for free.
Exactly.
So making sure that you have a really good landing page builder. There's some really economical ones. I fully do not think, and I mean, you can agree or disagree. This might be the point where our friendship might actually fork.
Oh no.
I don't believe in an all-in-one solution.
I don't either.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't either. I keep looking for it. Like I keep seeing people talk about it, and I've seen, and it'll grab my attention for a minute, and I'm like, nope. I just don't. I've yet to see any evidence that has ever existed.
It doesn't. They can't. No. You can't. No. You can't be. I call it. I mean, I can't. You can't do everything. Like all in one is the master of none. That's what I say.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's like being a general attorney. It just doesn't really work, and you're never that successful because for all the same
more
reasons.
Money as a doctor.
Yep.
A generalist or a specialist.
Exactly.
Right. So be a specialist.
Right.
So go with the people that are going to be the specialist of what they do. Those are the landing pages. So the landing page has to look pretty good. It doesn't have to look like $1 million, and nor do you have to pay $1 million to make it happen.
Right.
But it has to look good. Have good images, right? Yep. Don't just copy and paste something out of Google and use the little Google white blowy uppy figure looking thing, right? And, the typical Google image. There's so many free, royalty-free image sites that you can use.
But if you can throw in images of your firm and your faces, even better, because people want to see you and like you're pulling them through and
video,
having
even
that conversation. Oh, the video. Yes.
Like, having a video on your landing page is like next level.
Yeah. And I will say, like, all of the things that I've recently personally converted with, they all have video. All of them, the best ones that I'm looking at, whatever it is that I'm buying, software, whatever it is, totally obviously not necessarily legal services, they always immediately have a video on that landing page. And it can be like 45 seconds.
Yeah. And you can film it with Zoom for free if you want to. Like just having something up there that again connects. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So whatever your persona is, you put your persona. So one of the people that I know, one of the lawyers I know, he's a bit of a bulldog. Yeah. Right. And he's a personal injury lawyer. And if you hire him, he's literally going to bite down and never let go. Yes. Like that's his whole thing. Like I am going to fight tooth and nail until the end. Yep. And so the video that's on his landing page is like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm the bulldog for your personal injury case. Right. And like he talks about it and he gets people riled up. That's awesome. Yeah. And it's just unscripted. He had a good time. One of my other clients, an actual client of mine, she's way more empathetic. Yes. She's way more about that sort of loving embrace. We've got you, hand around the shoulder kind of feel. And so the video on her landing page is very soft, experiential, makes you feel safe and warm and welcome. So there's a completely different audience for that. And that's for family law. Right. Well, and I have had clients who come to me and they look and maybe they're more like your second client, the soft family law, estate planning, whatever, very personal work that they're doing. And they look at those personal injury sites and they're like, I love how this one looks. And maybe they're looking at like the bulldog and they're like, this is great. And I'm like, yes, but it's not for you. Right. Like we are not going to use those colors and those fonts and that approach for you because that'll feel so weird and so disingenuous. Fake. Yes. And that's the first thing that people will be like, ew, what are you doing? And so it's not about necessarily like finding this recipe for a certain approach or something. It's actually the opposite of that. It's being more custom and making sure that it's you're not following what everybody else is doing because that would be weird and feel weird. And it's not going to work. Okay. So we could talk about this all day long, but I want to hear about the book that you have to recommend. And I'm sure we can tie this all in. So if you haven't noticed, we've got this amazing library on the site and all the guests have recommended books that are usually related to the topic we're talking about. So Jennie, what's the book that you have? Oh, okay. So this is going to show the geek in me. Oh, I love it. And this is Sir Patrick Stewart. Making It So. So he Patrick is a sir, Stewart, right? He is a sir. Yeah. Okay. Knighted. So it's appropriate. It is appropriate. And so if you don't know who Patrick Stewart is, he is the actor who played Captain Jean-Luc Picard on Star Trek: The Next Generation, which came out in the late 80s and lasted into the 90s. Yes, I'm a geek. And I didn't realize it was that long ago. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's 88. It came out in like 88 or 89. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And I think it only lasted 7 or 8 seasons. Anyways. That's crazy. But what is his book about? His book is his memoir. He's in his 80s. Okay. But it's talking about his life and how he started off as a Shakespearean actor, that he never expected to do well, and that he's always surprised, even in his 80s, that people like his acting, and it keeps him humble. Oh, that's so nice. It is. And that's one of the things that I try and bring into sort of my space is the humbleness of, the gratitude of everything that's going on or everything that's happened that is good in your life and that you want to continue on, but just having that sort of that humbleness that, you're not all that, you're not all ego and brash, right? And that you stand to learn even into your 80s. To be a better human being. And that's what he talks about that. He talks about being in the Royal Shakespeare Company He talks about always being, a little bit of the odd man out in some ways.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Think about, I feel like that is such a really important thing to keep in mind, especially with marketing. And like, I've been doing this for about 15 years. If I had kind of stuck my boots in the mud and said, no, there's one way to do this. There's one way to make a website, and it is HTML.
You would not be very popular right now.
No, I would not have much business. No. And like, that's just not the way the world works. Right. No. And so, and look at all these advances. I mean, just in this last year with AI, and who knows what will happen in the next 5 years. So you literally can't have this kind of stick in the mud approach to marketing, because you will just get left in the dust. Like it's kind of a nice way to think about life in general. Like things are constantly changing. I need to learn and change. And also like just being nice and humble and appreciative of like where life has brought you. Like that's a nice kind of client-centric approach that people are going to really be attracted to and appreciate, versus I would assume that your bulldog client wouldn't necessarily be on board with that. Like you probably feel a little differently about,
weirdly enough, the bulldog, he is actually a puppy. Like he is it's his persona. Yeah. But behind that, he's one of the nicest people.
Well, that's a nice balance, because
and he's incredibly empathetic. So it's a good balance for him.
Yeah, well, it's rare to find where people have both and can balance that out. Yeah. So that's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so we will tag, the book is Making It So, Patrick Stewart, and we'll obviously add it to the library, put it on the page. It sounds like a nice read for, this time of the year, and just kind of setting baseline feelings about how to approach work and life and all of that.
Absolutely. And during the pandemic, just as a note, he actually brought out the Book of Sonnets from Shakespeare, and every day he would read a sonnet live on Facebook.
Oh my gosh.
So, not that I know everybody loves Shakespeare, but it was such a soothing voice to listen to. And it was like, it was 10 or 15 minutes. It was very relaxing. It was lovely just to hear it. And it just took your mind off of things.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. What a wonderful, I just think he's a wonderful human being. And I think there's a lot to gather from that just for life.
Sure.
Out of this,
oh my gosh, that's
book.
A good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we've had books that are very specific, like with one tactic, and it's like, it's nice because you can have like one little takeaway thing, but this seems broad and just sort of theoretical, and like, this is how you should be as a human being, which
there's a bit more esoteric to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, if you're watching the video of this, I have a boatload of books behind me and they're all business minded, but you have to, like, I personally think you just have to balance them out.
Yes.
With having some stuff that's totally not business related, but could spark interest in something.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. We will link to that. So what's one thing that that works? I mean, we have talked about a lot. We've talked about this funnel, specifics within the funnel. We've talked about Patrick Stewart. Like we covered a lot here.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what's one thing that that works?
Consistency.
Yeah.
Just consistency, whatever it is, plan to do it for 90 days.
Yes.
So post with regularity on social media for 90 days. It doesn't have to be 5 times a day. It could be 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And just post with regularity. Do something consistently before you say that didn't work.
Yeah. And that's, especially when it comes to lead gen, that's one of the first questions. It's usually how much and how fast are the first 2 questions that I get. And the people who don't actually lead with that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, they get it. Yeah.
Yes, they know. Okay, I'm in this for the long haul. I know these things, if they're done well, it takes time, like everything in life. And I do think that consistency, and my other big one is patience. Like it kind of goes hand in hand with consistency.
Absolutely.
But, being patient and knowing that there will be a bit of a roller coaster ride, no matter what marketing tactic you're using. You have to test, and you have to have things that don't go the way as planned. And that's not a failure or something that we've done wrong. That's data.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Yes.
And as a data geek, the more data, the better.
Yes, I love it. Okay. All right. What's a big takeaway that you'd like? I mean, like I said a minute ago, we've talked about so many things. What's a big takeaway that you'd like everyone to just get overall from this whole episode?
Don't look at marketing as an overwhelming piece of the puzzle for your business. Look at it as a necessity that you don't necessarily need to do yourself, but you just need to understand enough that you can give good direction and understand what needs to be done. So look at what needs to be done. Don't get overwhelmed by it. If it's too much for you, find somebody like us to support you with that. Like, there's some great professionals like we are that can do that job. And, make sure that you're putting time, effort, and some funds into increasing your lead gen. Always be lead genning. There you go.
I love
That's my takeaway. And it goes with my name.
Nice. Oh, exactly. I almost see like a little bumper sticker.
Right? It's like what is it? ABC, always be selling. This is always be lead genning. There you go.
Oh my gosh. That could be like such a nice little tagline. Jennie Wright, always be lead genning.
I'm going to trademark that.
That's awesome.
I got mugs. I'm going to make mugs with that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Jennie Wright, thank you so much for being here. Jennie Wright is a lead gen consultant and specialist. And thank you so much. This was awesome. We will link to all your stuff, your website, your LinkedIn, all the good links and everything, as well as the book on the show notes. But thank you so much. This was an awesome conversation.
Karin, it's been so beautiful to have this conversation, to talk to somebody who's like-minded and just really enjoy it. I love your stance on things. Could be doing this for hours. So I really appreciate the opportunity just to have this conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Counsel Cast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.